I wanted just the really important things, also things that people don't know about me because everyone thinks they know everything. It's kind of personal, but then I thought it's really important for people to know.
Babe, I got you, babe.
Did you know I Got You Babe reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart and became one of the biggest-selling and most beloved pop rock hits of the mid-60s? For many, the disappointments they face force them to quit and never try again. However, for Cher, things were different. Despite the successes she has come to be known for, the goddess of pop has had a heartbreaking, tragic life, filled with sorrow and deep-seated anguish. Yet, she managed to overcome them all to become the sensation she is today. Early life. Let us take a look at the tragedy that befell the goddess of pop throughout her life from the time she was born until well into her later years. Sherilyn Sarkisian, popularly known as Cher, was born in El Centro, California, on May 20, 1946, to parents Georgia Holt, who was born as Jackie Jean Crouch, a former model and retired actress, claiming to be of Irish, English, German, and Cherokee ancestry. Her father, John Sarkisian, was an Armenian-American truck driver who suffered from drug and gambling addictions. Cher's life history comprises complex knots of relationships that weave and wind together. However, the beginning of this thread has its origin in her parents, John Sarkisian and Georgia Holt. Their relationship burned hot with an intriguing romance that sadly dwindled into soft embers, soon completely put out and ending in a divorce. The sparks in their relationship ignited when a teenage Georgia Holt, who was born Jackie Jean Crouch, met the dashing and highly attractive John Sarkisian, a truck driver, while working at a donut shop in Fresno, California. Sparks flew between them, and they both elected to take a bold decision and get married after having run off to Reno, Nevada. Things took a sharp and unexpected turn when Georgia realized that marriage wasn't in the works for her, and decided to leave John. However, the silver-tongued John persuaded her to give the marriage a chance. She told People in 1978, "I left him the day after the wedding. I knew I didn't want to be married, but he told me to try it for 3 months, and if I didn't like it, then I could walk out." Well, before 3 months was out, I was pregnant with Cher. In 1995, Georgia made the revelation that when she discovered that she was pregnant, she was faced with a very hard and heavy decision. After her return home, her mother sent her to a local abortionist with an ultimatum: abort an unborn Cher, or she'll have no home to return to. Georgia gave these options much thought as she sat in the doctor's office. When it came time for her to get rid of the baby so she could return home, Georgia realized that she couldn't go through with it. Although the allure of home sounded refreshing and would be a break from the terrible months she'd had, she ultimately decided to keep the child. Unfortunately, the passing of time and the birth of her baby was not enough to breathe life into the already dying relationship, and the couple opted to go their separate ways when Cher was just 10 months old. As a result of his absence, Cher and her father, John Sarkisian, had a strained relationship, which was further exacerbated by his constant drug use and gambling. Communication between them was far and in between, as a result of these, making the connection between them distant at best. Despite their rocky relationship, Cher still managed to cultivate love and respect for her Armenian heritage, and this is credited to her father's influence. Cher finally got a true father figure in her life when Georgia married her third husband, an actor, John Southall, with whom she had another daughter, Jorgen, Cher's half-sister. Cher remembers him as a good-natured man who turned belligerent when he drank too much. Their marriage was punctuated with a myriad of conflicts which were sometimes violent. This broke their relationship after 5 long years together, ending in a divorce. Cher was 9 years old at the time. Despite the turbulence that was the highlight of the relationship within Cher's family, these parental figures shaped and influenced her life uniquely, providing her with tools to carve out a path in her journey. Cher's upbringing was highly affected by her mother, Georgia's tempestuous and unstable life. Georgia had a total of 7 marriages, having remarried Cher's father, John Sarkeesian, a second time. This did not make for the steadiest environment suitable for the growth and upbringing of a child. Georgia gave her reasons for these numerous marriages in an interview with People magazine, where she stated that she was pressured by the norms of her time to marry repeatedly, as being with someone without the cover of a marriage was unacceptable. The product of several marriages and divorces meant that Cher was never settled in one place for too long and was often plunged into financial difficulties. Georgia's career as an aspiring actress and singer did not have the needed traction to move her family out of financial peril. For this reason, a cloud of uncertainty hung over Cher's early life, even as Georgia, her mother, took up roles in big movie productions and secured infrequent singing gigs. At the tender age of 6, Georgia's struggle as a single mother dropped to a new low, leading to her briefly placing Cher in a Catholic orphanage, where the nuns urged her to give the child up for adoption because she made her living singing in a bar. While searching for a stronger financial foothold, Georgia ensured that they met every day. This, however, did not make the experience less traumatic for either of them. Sometimes Cher and her half-sister, Jorgan, had to spend long periods with their grandparents, while her mother painstakingly pursued a job in the entertainment industry and lived in a cheap, beat-down accommodation. The financial challenges prevalent in Cher's early life meant that she often had to make do with very little. In an interview with Vanity Fair, Cher recalled her terrible and embarrassing experience when she had to wrap rubber bands around the soles of her shoes to keep them from falling apart. However, her childhood wasn't always characteristically dark. Sometimes bits of sunshine broke through. Some days, Cher stated that they could eat a can of stew or beans, highlighting their economic woes. And yet, there were other times when they lived a much grander life than the one she had come to know, sometimes going as far as living in Beverly Hills. Although this fluctuation must have been confusing at the time, it granted her some respite. The waxing and waning that suffused Cher's upbringing made her resilient in the face of constant flux and economic challenges, which molded her into the significant figure she'd become in the entertainment world. Despite Cher's attractiveness and natural flair for creativity, her life in high school left her feeling like an outsider. Though bright, her grades were not in conformity with her intelligence. Cher had the single focus and goal of being a star from a tender age, which may have contributed to her disdain for academics. In her biography, Cher, If You Believe, her dislike for academics was highlighted. This stemmed from the fact that she never felt like she fit in with her peers. Cher explained that she hated school because she couldn't seem to fit into the right places and always had her sights set on something else. She thought about what life would be like when she was all grown up, the fame she would garner, the clothes she would wear, and the kind of people she would surround herself with. It would not be remiss if she wasn't that into high school. Whatever contribution Cher's goal of being a movie star and a global sensation may have had to her academics was further aggravated by another obstacle and disability. Cher has both dyslexia and dyscalculia, although there was not much known about it at the time. She struggled in school with reading and making sense of numbers as a result. In an interview, she outlined the difficulties she faced in high school. "I never read in school. I got really bad grades, D's and F's and C's in some classes, and A's and B's in other classes." She said that her report cards from school always said that she wasn't living up to her potential. This remark may have its roots in the fact that during her time in high school, dyslexia was yet to be properly understood. and individuals in this category were hence accused of not applying themselves properly to their studies. At the turn of 16, the burden of grappling with academic hurdles became intolerable, pushing her to a breaking point. Poised to become a star, Cher made a daring decision to quit school in the 11th grade. Would this bold move turn out to be the best outcome for her, or would she come to regret the path she had chosen for herself? For Cher, there was only one way to find out, and it was not within the confines of her torture system known as school. The break, Sonny and Cher. After Cher dropped out of school, a brave decision on her part, she vacated her mother's home and set her sights on the City of Angels, Los Angeles. There, she danced in small clubs along the Hollywood Sunset Strip, working to sustain herself while she took acting classes. She also tried to get the attention of anyone who could give her the chance she needed for her big break, and get her an audition for a job that would end in a signed contract. Fortune smiled at her in November 1962 when she came across Sonny Bono. Sonny was 27 years old at the time of their meeting and worked as a songwriter and record promoter, while Cher was only 16. At the time, Cher was working as a backup singer and Sonny was working for a record producer, Phil Spector. Cher and Sonny agreed that she would be his live-in housekeeper. He subsequently took her under his wings, guiding her career. However, what was once a platonic relationship would change gears, and the two soon became romantically involved. Sonny introduced Cher to the producer, Phil Spector, and he would go on to use her as a backup singer on many of his recordings, including the Ronettes' Be My Baby and the Righteous Brothers' You've Lost That Lovin' Feelin'. Following her work with him, Spector helped produce Cher's first single, Ringo I Love You, which was a dedication to the Beatles' drummer, Ringo Starr. Unfortunately, Cher's voice and the name she had recorded it under, Bonnie Jo Mason, would prove to be a problem. Her song was rejected by many radio station programmers who thought that the song had been sung by a man, specifically a homosexual male in love with the drummer. The evolution of Cher's relationship with Sonny was closely followed by their musical collaboration. In 1965, the beloved musical duo started gaining prominence largely due to their iconic song, I Got You Babe. This hit song revolved around love and companionship. The message woven into this distinctive harmony was one of enduring love and the comfort found in being with someone who understands and stands by you through thick and thin. This became a sort of anthem of that era and served as a launch board for the iconic folk-pop duo Sonny and Cher, propelling them to international fame. Following the success I Got You Babe amassed, many successive hits followed, including The Beats Goes On, a signature tune for the duo which featured an appealing melody that captured the spirit of the era, and the earlier hit, Baby Don't Go, cementing their status as a popular music duo. With their success in the musical arena, Cher and Sonny were poised to also conquer the world of film. With their 1967 comedy movie Good Times, the couple sought to create a name for themselves in the world of film. Good Times saw Sonny and Cher playing themselves, but with a fictionalized version of their own lives. The movie was received negatively and criticized for being a collection of mediocre comedic sketches put together with little cohesion or excellence. Despite their failure in the path they had set out to conquer, the two would not be so easily defeated. Instead of giving up, they chose to try again. To expand their horizons beyond their musical career and resuscitate their fortunes, they sank a good portion of their finances into a movie titled Chastity. The movie abandoned their usual comedic style and took on a more intense and dramatic tone. However, critics would see the movie as being so overwhelmingly offbeat, with no real plot to boast of, because there wasn't much of any. It came as no surprise that the movie was a massive flop and had the undesired effect of pushing the duo into financial turmoil. They had managed to bring themselves to the brink of financial ruin, plunging into debt as a result of the dream they held on to, having spent $500,000 and mortgaged their home to make the movie. As the two battled the challenges of their rapidly depleting finances, they couldn't have known they were set for even more ruin. The late 1960s and early 1970s came with an evolution in the style of music. No longer were people interested in the pop and folk style the duo was known for. The world had adjusted to the new sensations and had left them behind to adjust with it or fade off into non-existence. Unfortunately, this meant even more financial problems for them. This period saw the rise of psychedelic rock, hard rock, and other genres of music. Despite the series of upheavals, Sonny and Cher managed to adapt to some degree. They went into the woodshed and remade themselves, transforming from pop singers to live acts. Their new act was met with success. This marked a new phase in the pursuit of their goals in the entertainment world. One of their notable adaptations to the changing atmosphere was marked by a transition into television with the launch of the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour. This showcased a unique blend of comedic talents mixed with musical performances. The show was well received by audiences and became a hit. It ensured they remained popular and secured their relevance in the entertainment industry. This variety show aired from 1971 to 1974. Just 1 year after the debut of their show, cracks started to appear in their relationship. With both couples engaging in extramarital affairs and Sonny's repeated womanizing, his attitude began to weigh heavily on Cher. Despite their tumultuous relationship, the couple agreed to stay together to further help their business, even as they engaged in. Will Cher allow the troubles she faced in her marriage to stop her from having a successful career path, or will she push through them to achieve the life she's always dreamed of? Marriage to Sonny Bono. Although the early 1960s had seen Cher and Sonny's music appealing to the audience, they ceased to make waves. Not only because of the psychedelic style of music that was beginning to take over, but also because of the monogamous lifestyle that the two maintained during a time of sexual revolution. Not only were they monogamous, but they also maintained an anti-drug position. Unfortunately, this meant that they lost popularity with the American youths, who saw this as a snub to the lifestyle they were choosing to embrace. According to Bego, despite their revolutionary unisex clothes, Sonny and Cher were quite square when it came to intercourse and harmful substances. By the end of the 1960s, Sonny had embraced the prevailing lifestyle and had started to date other people. This, however, led to a strain in their relationship as it began to unravel. According to People magazine, Sonny tried desperately to win her back, telling her he wanted to marry and start a family. The two, who had performed their own unofficial wedding ceremony in a hotel room in Tijuana, Mexico on October 27, 1964, officially tied the knot. On March 4, 1969, their union would mark an addition to their small unit as Cher and Sonny welcomed Chaz Bono, born Chastity Son Bono. Television breakthrough and musical comeback. In 1971, Fred Silverman, who was CBS's head of programming at the time, offered Sonny and Cher a chance to host their television program after watching them feature a guest host on The Merv Griffin Show. On August 1, 1971, in the same year, the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour premiered as a summer replacement series. The series was a 6-episode series, however. As a result of the high ratings and the popularity they developed, the couple returned only a few months later. In December, this time the show was full-time. The Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour had a 3-year run, boasting over 30 million viewers tuning in weekly to watch the couple. It was praised for its comedic timing, with Cher's deadpan mockery of Sonny about his looks and short stature being the highlight of the show. Cher and Sonny had managed to create a show that was everything the viewer wanted, the perfect blend of warmth, playfulness, and care that further endeared them to the hearts of the viewers. Viewers were further enamored by them whenever a young Chaz made a special appearance on the show. To them, the Bonos seemed like the perfect family. Cher had honed her acting skills, putting to good use the acting classes she had taken when she was 16 years old. She brought her skills to life, playing sketch comedy roles as the brash housewife Laverne, the sardonic waitress Rosa, and historical personalities like Cleopatra and Miss Sadie Thompson. Her wardrobe for the show was designed by Bob Mackie, adding to the allure of the show as some watched for her fashionable attire. Cher had become a fashion icon, influencing fashion trends in the 1970s. In 1971, Cher and Sonny signed with the Cap Records division of MCA Records, where she released her single, Classified 1A. The song was sung from the point of view of a soldier who lay dying as he bled to death in Vietnam. The song had been written by Sonny and was far off from her usual songs, since Sonny believed that the first solo single she produced with the label needed to evoke a deep feeling of sadness that would stay in the mind of the listener. Unfortunately, the song would be rejected by radio station programmers who felt it was too uncommercial. As a result of their failed attempt to revive their music career, Cap Records brought in Snuff Garrett to work with them. He worked with Cher, managing the second song she produced with the label, titled Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves. The sing proved to be exactly what Cher needed, as it became the first single by a solo artist to rank #1 on the US Billboard Hot 100 chart, at the same time as being #1 on the Canadian Singles Chart. Billboard would tag it as one of the 20th century's greatest songs. Unfortunately, this proved that Garrett knew more about Cher's voice and her persona as a singer than Sonny did, Bago writes. The song would go on to be featured in Cher's 1971 album, which would be certified gold by the Recording Industry Association of America, RIAA. The second single on the album, titled The Way of Love, would reach #7 on Billboard's Hot 100 chart, showing Cher as the recording artist she'd always wanted to be. In 1972, Cher would release another album, an all-ballad set titled Foxy Lady, showing the growth in her vocal abilities now that she had someone who understood her range and was willing to work with her to ensure that she continued to excel. Unfortunately, that would not last very long, as following the release of the album, Garrett quit as her producer after a disagreement with Sonny about the kind of songs Cher should record. Sonny was quite insistent about the kind of song he wanted her to release, and in 1973, Cher gave in, recording an album of standards called Bittersweet White Light. Unfortunately, as expected by almost everyone else, the song turned out to be unsuccessful. Still 1973, lyricist Mary Dean brought Garrett a song about the daughter of a Cherokee mother and a white father that had been written particularly for Cher. Although at the time, the two had already parted ways as a result of his disagreements with Sonny, Garrett knew that the song would be a perfect song for Cher and nobody else. Garrett would hold on to the song for months until he and Cher would work together again before letting on about the song. The title of the song was Half Breed. Featuring the same name on the album, Half Breed would become Cher's third US #1 single, with both the single and the album certified gold by the RIAA once again. In 1974, Cher released another song called Dark Lady, which was the lead single from her album Namesake. The song would once again turn out to be another success, reaching #1 on the Billboard Hot 10 and becoming Cher's fourth #1 single. Cher had dominated Billboard with her song releases in the past few years and had managed to become the female artist with the most #1 singles in United States history at the time. For her, that was exactly what she had dreamed of as she sat in class, waiting for the long and torturous school day to be over, and there it was, manifesting. proving herself to be the best and utterly deserving of her victories, Cher released a greatest hits album. The song would prove that she was one of the most consistent hitmakers of the past 5 years and a proven superstar who always sells records, according to Billboard magazine. Cher managed to revive her dying career with 4 albums released under Cap Records and MCA Records between 1971 and 1973. Divorce, second marriage, and popularity decline. Cher's marriage to Sonny had ended before it did in the eyes of the public. The two had suffered in silence, enduring their marital problems since late 1972 and keeping up their appearances until 1974, because they believed it was what should be done. In February 1974, Sonny filed for a separation, citing irreconcilable differences as his reason. Unfortunately, this would not be the end of their marital drama, as only a week later, Cher countered his suit with a divorce suit of her own, charging Sonny with involuntary servitude, claiming that he kept money from her and deprived her of her rightful share of their earnings. The battle over their finances and the custody of their child lasted for over a year. However, on June 26, 1975, the divorce was finalized, and Cher was granted custody of Chaz. In 1974, before their divorce was finalized, Cher won the Golden Globe Award for Best Actress, Television Series Musical or Comedy, for the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour. In the same year, Sonny tried to start his solo show on ABC called The Sonny Comedy Review. However, although he had managed to carry the creative team behind the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour, his show would last for only 3 months, after which it was canceled. Following her divorce from Sonny, Cher, who had maintained a 2-year romantic relationship with record executive David Geffen, secured a $2.5 deal for Cher with the Warner Brothers Records. She worked on her first album under the label in 1975, however. It was an entirely different genre from what she had become known for. Although Cher did her research, studying those who had made waves as rock stars, the album Stars turned out to be a commercial disaster, although now the album has since been considered one of her best works. On the 16th of February 1965, Cher returned to television with a solo show on CBS called Cher. The show, as a means of reintroducing her back into it without people losing interest now that she was no longer with Sonny for their comedy show, introduced special guests like Elton John and Bette Midler. The show focused on Cher's songs, her monologues, comedy performances, and even her fashionable style. Although it had been launched with bated breath, the show would turn out to be a wonderful idea. According to the Los Angeles Times, Sonny without Cher was a disaster. Cher without Sonny, on the other hand, could be the best thing that's happened to weekly television this season. Despite her success, Cher would partner with her husband professionally, less than a year after the development of her new show. According to The Ringer's Lindsay Zoladz, Cher found the network censors to be more watchful than they were when she was married to Sonny. When she was single or casually dating, Cher always seemed to pose more of a threat to the status quo than she did when she was Sonny's wife. Only 4 days after her divorce from Sonny, Cher would remarry rock musician Greg Allman. However, she filed for divorce 9 days later as a result of his heroin and liquor problems. The rock star was so high that he did not realize that she had asked for a divorce. However, he would ask for her forgiveness, choosing to work on himself and remain clean if she would give him another chance. The two reconciled, and although their marriage faced its hardship, on July 19, 1976, they had a son together, Elijah Blue. Although Cher's show with her ex-husband had been successful in the past, this time they would receive backlash from the public, which eventually led to the cancellation of the show in 1977. As Cher's popularity decreased, and she experienced a lack of sales of her album, she decided to take a hiatus from singing and focus on her acting career. After trying unsuccessfully to venture into film, in 1985, she created a film production company, Isis. Her film Mask, which was produced in the same year, became number 2 at the box office. Her role as a drug addict with a teenage son who suffered a severe deformity won her the Cannes Film Festival Award for Best Actress. In 1987, Cher signed with Geffen Records to revive her musical career. Her song, I Found Someone, was her first U.S. top 10 single in more than 8 years. By the end of the 1980s, Cher had not only received attention for her return to music, but also for her lifestyle that did not follow in the ways of her time. From plastic surgeries to tattoos, having an exhibitionist fashion sense, and affairs with younger men, Cher's lifestyle was too evolved for her time, and her actions were frowned upon. Following the death of Sonny Bono in 1998, Cher was heartbroken, returning home to her family to grieve his loss. To her, he was the most unforgettable character she'd come across. Cher would experience some personal struggles and would retire from music in 2005 following a press tour. However, she soon returned to the music scene in 2008 after a 3-year retirement period. In December 2023, she released her first Christmas album, proving she is not ready to slow down just yet. Perhaps there will be more of Cher to grace our screens in the future. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a comment to tell us what you think about this video in the comment section.